In this video, we'll look at a bunch of Star Wars games that time has forgotten. Star Wars games used to be pretty rad back in the retro PC times, and they've been pretty good recently from what I hear, but there was this entire chunk of time around the turn of the millennium when the Force seemed to have abandoned them. Star Wars Pit Droids from 1999 is the first of several Lucas learning relics on this list, and I want to single this one out because of how it completely surprised me. First of all, the game has absolutely no reason to go this hard from the installation screen. I mean, my droid, you're at a 10 and should be at a 4. The game has you working as something of a droid shepherd, wrangling malfunctioning pit droids with strategically placed arrows.
It's a simple concept, but it checks out.
This is a pure puzzle game, a deceptively and surprisingly deep one at that. As you progress, the droids get more diverse, some requiring color-coded guidance, others needing time maneuvers. It's a mental exercise that kinda snuck up on me, forcing me to think way more than I was planning to, and as a result I quickly hit a droid wall.
But that does say more about me than it does the game.
Pit droids might not be for everyone. The lack of pew pew and lightsabers might be a turn off for them. But for puzzle enthusiasts, especially those with a soft spot for Star Wars, this is a hidden gem. Star Wars Force Commander from 2000 promised to give you command of iconic vehicles and troops in a real-time strategy game that took place in the Star Wars galaxy. And when it comes to that latter part, the atmosphere and world, the game does deliver. The sounds of blaster fire and rumbling walkers instantly transport you to a Star Wars battlefield where you can watch AT-ATs lumber forward and TIE Fighter swarm. Undeniably cool. Now onto the part of the game that doesn't deliver, respectively the actual game part. The action itself is pretty slow and the controls are maybe too clunky even for its era. The pathfinding is wonky and units will inevitably get stuck into things. The camera acts a bit as a battlefield spy in itself, causing a fair few bouts of confusion. Visually, it hasn't aged well either. The blocky textures are maybe a bit too blocky, if that makes sense, even for an appreciator of retro aesthetics like myself. Overall, Force Commander is a frustrating mix. It had the potential of being a great Star Wars RTS, but the execution is bogged down by technical limitations.
I'm going to cancel my lunch reservations in the Officers Club now.
Star Wars The Gungan Frontier, also from 1999, is clearly the most ambitious of the Lucas learning titles. On the surface, the Gungan Frontier gives off the vibes of a city building game, but instead of managing resources and citizens, you're tasked with creating an entire ecosystem. The game throws a staggering number of weird flora and fauna your way, each with specific dietary needs and environmental tolerances. You're responsible for introducing these creatures in a careful order, ensuring a balanced food chain that can sustain itself somehow. You can choose to play as either Obi-Wan or Amidala, but I can't tell you if this affects gameplay beyond how the characters address you.
Hello, Queen Amidala. Increase the harvest. We are needing more stuff to build with.
The features don't stop there. The Gungan Frontier features a Spore Light, I would call it, Create a Critter mode, letting players design their own unique creatures and introduce them into the ecosystem. This injects a surprising amount of creativity into the experience. However, all of this ambition comes with a cost. The gameplay experience is kinda bad. The juggling act of managing a complex ecosystem and paying attention to fairly arbitrary numbers is not only really challenging to approach, especially for this game's young target audience, but also from a development and design standpoint. Star Wars The Gungan Frontier is an applaudable effort in what it tries to do and also how it approaches educational entertainment. However, its execution is where the game falters. It's simply half-assed.
That boss Nass, he bombed ugly.
Star Wars Starfighter from 2002 on PC or 2001 on PS2 and Xbox offers a curious mix of nostalgia and technical shortcomings. Stepping into the shoes of a Naboo pilot just before the Trade Federation's invasion is not as much of a thrill for the average Star Wars fan my age as much as it's quaint. Flying these things will never be anywhere as cool as flying X-Wings or TIE Fighters, but c'est la force. Possibly the best thing about the game has nothing to do with the game per se. I'm talking about the intro and outro cutscenes.
Oh, son of a hut! Oh, he's still alive! Here I am about to flush your body out and strip your motor down for parts!
Which, to be honest, are quite engrossing even now. A big component of their success is the top-notch voice acting and the story. While not earth-shattering by any stretch of the imaginary, it complements the prequel film nicely. I would argue it's better than episode 1, mainly because it's shorter. If you're looking for a deep and challenging Star Wars fight experience, this isn't the game you're looking for. But for a more casual and younger Star Wars fan who wants to relive the events of episode 1 from a much more engaging perspective, Starfighter can at the very least be a decent time waster for an afternoon or so.
Taking evasive maneuvers.
Don't forget to use your missiles, Dallas.
Bravo 10 engaging fighters.
Where are you, Reese? That's one down.
Star Wars Droidworks is from 1998, which means it still relies on the original trilogy for its setting. This one is more open about being an educational tool, meant to teach physics concepts through the medium of droids. Here's how it works. The game missions present specific challenges, like navigating differently angled terrain, activating buttons, and picking up or otherwise manipulating various pieces of stuff from around a given map. To succeed, players need to design a droid with the necessary physical capabilities. This involves selecting parts like legs, treads, arms, and tools, all with different strengths and weaknesses. The brilliance of this game lies in this immediate feedback loop. Building a droid that is ill-suited for a mission means you won't be able to complete said mission. These in-game challenges directly translate to real-world physics concepts like weight distribution, locomotion, and even material science, which is great. You have a separate portion of the game where these concepts are explained in text and illustrated with images. Conceptually, Droidworks is a great example of edutainment done right. Unfortunately, its execution feels a bit lackluster, most likely due to the technical limitations of the time, seeing as how I had trouble climbing ramps in the first mission unless I was hitting them at some arbitrary angle and or speed. So I wouldn't say Droidworks is as playable nowadays as Pit Droids is, but it is cool to know it exists.
Your droid's battery power is getting dangerously low.
Star Wars Yoda Stories from 1997 is maybe the oddest entry on the list, being a very light desktop app that is a procedurally generated point-and-click adventure with some very basic combat sprinkled in here and there. Every time you start a new game, a new world is generated, and you'll find the maps themselves being quite big and populated with a likewise large number of puzzles. Most of these, however, are simple fetch quests or require you moving blocks around to reveal various items. The use of short music and sound clips is cute as hell. And likewise, the not exactly chibi pixel art renditions of the characters are also cute, but those things get old once you get used to them. Despite the procedural generation, after completing a few worlds, the repetitive tasks and basic combat get played out. While it has some amount of replayability for the die-hard Star Wars completionist, said replayability is limited. Yoda Stories is fun to track down and get running, either for nostalgia purposes or simply to get a sense of what it is, but not something you can really get into nowadays. Star Wars Chess from 1993, or
The Software Toolworks presents
Star Wars Chess. It still kinda holds a certain amount of charm, illustrating chess pieces as iconic Star Wars characters from the original trilogy. The perspective isn't super great though. You can see the opponent pieces super well, but you'll only see the backs of yours, which kinda makes sense, but is also a bummer at the same time. I imagine this might have been due to either tech limitations or particular design directions, meaning maybe the characters are supposed to look easily recognizable and as such they had to be this size. The core gameplay is, well, it's chess, which is great on its own. Chess is almost a universal classic, pun intended, but it's not the chess game for chess aficionados. The AI wasn't great for its time, let alone 30-something years later. So the real draw here is limited to the Star Wars theme, and I gotta say the Empire pieces are all so much cooler than the Rebel ones, but villains usually have better fashion designers anyway. Besides of the absence of Han Solo from the board, whom by the way you can see frozen in carbonite in the upper right of the screen, the other thing that truly jumps at you is the capture animations, and these are many and generally cute and fun, but again the novelty wears off after a while. The other thing that you'll notice is how Darth Vader is the queen, and I don't know exactly what to make of that, but he has always had a penchant for the dramatic. All in all, the game is cool just for the sake of the capture animations, but honestly, I'm sure you can track those down somewhere on the internet and just watch them there.
And since this is my channel, it means I can only end the list on either a CRPG or a strategy game. And seeing as how all of the Star Wars CRPGs are quite well known, our bonus game is none other than Star Wars Rebellion from 1998, or Star Wars Supremacy for those of you in the UK, is a real-time 4X that I would argue is something of a proto-grand strategy title. It not only features a maximum of 200 systems you can manage in terms of resource allocation, fleet building, espionage and diplomacy, but it also gives you the use of heavy hitters from the lore like Luke, Leia and Han, as well as other characters from the now defunct extended universe. The game was not designed with beginner accessibility in mind. As such, there is no campaign to steadily introduce you to the concepts and mechanics. All games are procedurally generated and you need to be very much into hardcore management games and Star Wars to truly enjoy it. The biggest issue to enjoying it nowadays, however, is how it cannot be obtained through any digital distribution platform. Though you can find it on the internet if you summon your inner Han Solo. Click on the video on the left of your screen if you'd like to see more from me. If you'd like to support me, thank you. There's a link to Patreon on the right of the screen. I post a newsletter through Patreon for free, by the way. In case you're a GOG user, please consider using my GOG affiliation link in the description for your next purchase. I've been Stefan, the Retro Gaming Anthropologist. Thank you for watching and good luck out there.